motorcycle up here, and I thought I'd be up here in like my motorcycle gear and just go all out with that. But the weather is going to be a bit inclement, and I'm very sad about that. This talk is, as you can see, SIEM and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Has anyone read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? This is a classic book. Good. Oh, everybody in the front row. Awesome. This talk is based off of something I just thought was funny, which is just the title. And so I'm going to make a talk about that somehow. Yeah, oh sure, before I kill myself on it? Yeah, okay, cool. So, and it's also kind of trying to address a problem I've been seeing. Overall, who's seen me speak? Who done see me spoke here? How about at ISSA? Yeah, ooh, yeah. So, it's been a little while, so hi, this is me. Speaking to this audience is always difficult because I'm used to speaking at the hands on the keyboard conferences, the boots on the ground conferences, the conferences where most of the attendees are people who are independent contributors, doing the work, actually out there writing the rules and the things like that. And this crowd generally is more policymakers. It's more people on the business side of the house. And you go, well, what do I have to offer? What do I have to talk about to that group? And then, of course, what I have to talk about is the things I scream into my pillow at home all the time. And so I thought I would... yeah, fuck. Just getting it out of the way. There, now we can move on. The things I scream into my pillow at night and throughout the day, does everybody have a desk pillow as well to scream into? Right? Yes, cool. Highly recommended if you don't. Standing desk and a pillow to scream into are the two best things you can do for your health in your home if you're working from there. The problem was the things I'm screaming all the time are the things that everybody has already had screamed at them for the past decade. And I go, and we all go, those of us who have our hands on the keyboard, our boots on the ground, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to plug my laptop in here. It's probably a good idea. Thanks, Leslie. By the way, your charger's up here.
Yes, I love you, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
I know you're Johnny again.
You've been looking out for me for so long. So I'm going to talk about SIEM, purchasing, ownership, maintenance, TCO, which everybody here has been talking about to each other, to themselves, hearing from vendors for freaking ever. And if you read the synopsis for this presentation, I'm not going to tell you anything you have not already heard, and yet you're all still sitting here. I said it's got to be the way it's being presented. It's just not being conveyed in some way that it's just settling into people's brains. So I'm going to present it in a way that is completely different in the frame of my love of motorcycles. In relation to Leslie's Johnnying it comment, real quick fun fact, I was preparing to give this presentation. I was all set up around noon today, had it all squared away, looked great, nice and polished, knew how it was going to go, closed everything out, cleaned the computer out. I said, all right, let's just get that presentation up so it's ready to go. And it was fucking gone. It had disappeared. I have some theories as to why. It was not in my real-time backup. It was gone. So as of noon today, I had nothing to talk to you guys about. And I got to work on what we've been calling Johnnying it for a long time now. And I just made the presentation again. So I love extreme sports, as motorcycle theme conveys. And so I also love presenting. And so I'm now turning presenting into an extreme sport by making the presentation only minutes before. I literally finished it during Leslie's talk, so let's see how this goes together. Wow, and my clicker's already dead. Cool. Whatever. So this, I'm told this is me. I took a look at the ISSA website, and that's the picture they had on there, so I guess that's who I am. Does anybody know who this is, by the way? There's a $50 bounty for anybody who can provide evidence.
We literally do not know where the picture came from.
No idea where the picture came from. It is not. It's not a younger me, certainly. I sent in a picture, and so I look like this, and that looks like that. So I don't know what's happening. But Robert had the great idea of like, well, you got to put it on your intro slide. So that's what I did. And there I am. Overall, this is what I call the slide of stuff you don't care about, so I'll go through it real fast. I'm a music major. I came from music school. I went to Northwestern. Any other Northwestern music majors? Any other regular music majors? No, one. See, anybody who just wishes they were a music major.
Yeah!
That's the right answer. Cool. Yeah, I'm also an urban explorer, which is kind of a misnomer because what I really do is I love to abandon just the long left behind wreckage of humanity as we just destroy this planet and build massive structures and then just leave them behind us. If you take a look at my Instagram, I've been doing a lot of photography where I enter these buildings with various levels of permission and photograph the interiors of them.
I definitely gave you permission in Berlin.
Yeah, right. Well, for permission from various people with various levels of authority. So that's these are two of my big hobbies alongside motorcycles. I am also president, as we've determined, of BurbSec. There's so much discussion about that today and over the past few days. I don't have to talk about BurbSec anymore. Everybody's aware of BurbSec, right? Well, if you're not aware of BurbSec, it's yet another meetup you can go to. It's more, again, hands on the keyboard, folks. It's far less formal. There are no presentations, no dues. It's absolutely free. A lot of times we have sponsors, so like free food and beer too. There's one a week. There's one or more every single week of the month somewhere in Chicagoland. So go to burbsec.com. You can figure out where your local one is. We'd love to have you. Also in Galway. If you're happen to be in Ireland, there's a great one just outside of Galway. Professionally, I am a crime simulator. I do crime. I get paid to do crime, mostly cyber crime. Sometimes physical crime. I'm a very big fan of the physical crime. Physical security is something I did for a long time as a penetration tester. I got really into it. It really helps with the urban exploration. But as a hobbyist and a professional, I do crime. Doing crime for so long has allowed me to become the global head of offensive security at Kraft Heinz. Not allowed to put in my slide deck where I work, but I'm allowed to talk about it. I don't know how that works. It's corporate comms. So that's where I am. So if you happen to see that on LinkedIn, yes, I'm that guy. I'm the head of OffSec at Kraft Heinz. Kraft Heinz, the food guys. We are the worst, according to Leslie, because we're predominantly manufacturing. So I'm right here, I can hear you. Just calling me out. Here's a nice QR code if you want to find all my socials and email address, and also a link to my talk decks, including this one. So just go ahead and scan that. Just scan, please scan the QR code the hacker put up on the screen. That will also be up at the end, so you can grab it there as well. This poor clicker. I wonder if it's dead. So let's talk about motorcycles. But just to get back onto the topic real quick, I'm going to be talking about SIEM management and ownership, etc., in a very tongue-in-cheek manner regarding how it relates to motorcycle ownership. And so I want you to think about the things I'm saying and the things I went through with my life of motorcycles and how they might apply to you and your SIEMs. And I understand most of you, gosh, I hope all of you who at least are employed right now or have a SIEM and are using a SIEM in your environment, and etc. But there's always newer, better things coming out all the time, aren't there? Especially now that you can't look at your email without having somebody just put the letters A and I real freaking big 1,000 times in there and say, and now we're getting SIEM and A and I. And I'm like, I thought the one I bought in 2013 did AI and machine learning. What do you mean now you have it? You told me you already had it. Anyway, this was the first motorcycle that I purchased voluntarily. This is the first motorcycle I wanted. My first motorcycle was not the one I wanted. It was the one that I had the opportunity to get my hands on for a really good price. And so I bought it because it was there. And then once I had it, I said, gosh, I should learn how to ride motorcycles. And so then I did, and I beat that one up. And then I said, okay, I've stopped wrecking the motorcycle. I've stopped dropping it. I've stopped running into things. It's time for me to buy a grown-up motorcycle. The motorcycle I want. And so I chose this one. This is the 2007 Honda Hornet. I don't make the names. That was the nickname of the motorcycle. The model number is like CBR 600RR. That's not fun. Hornet is the fun name. And I wanted this motorcycle. Why did I want this motorcycle? Somebody guess.
Fast.
Fat? Sure.
Well, it was white.
Because it's slow? Okay, we got a fast, we got a slow.
White.
White, it is because it's white. You don't really see a white motorcycle, right?
That's your beard.
Matches, all right, anyway. Let's get, that's all right, let's bring this back in.
You didn't have a beard then.
Yeah, I didn't have a beard then. I was a weird looking kid.
Very.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted it because it looks cool, right? Right?
Yeah, right.
And I said, oh, it looks cool, and it's fuel injected, et cetera, et cetera. There were some reasons that I had put behind why do I want this motorcycle. What did I like? What did I not like about the old motorcycle? Old motorcycle was carbureted. It took a lot of work just to make it run. This is fuel injected. I don't have to put any work into making it run. It's real fast, and that means I can get places faster, right? Yeah, sure, in Chicago. Yeah, and it looks cool, and that's when I was like, that's what's important. Also, read a lot of reviews. It's a high quality bike. Everybody loves it. Everybody recommends it. Can't beat it. I was like, oh, this sounds like the bike to get. It's a great bike. So I want a great bike. I'm going to buy this bike. I did love this bike. I still miss this bike. The problem became that it was not enough bike for me. And you go, how is it not enough bike for you? This thing is fast. I did not do proper budgeting of my needs for this motorcycle. And this is me coming off already having a motorcycle and going, all right, I need something that's more aligned with what I do with motorcycles. And what I was doing once I had met Robert and the gang was we were doing a lot of touring. We'd go out to, where's our favorite place? Dubuque. Yeah. We go out to Dubuque, Iowa all the time and just cruise around all of those super curvy roads all day, absolute blast. The reason you own a motorcycle is because roads have curves in them. It's
What's
like,
your favorite sign in the world?
yeah, the sign with the this on it is just the absolute, that's the dream. It's like owning a roller coaster that you can drive. It's the best. Everyone should have a motorcycle. And so we kept doing this, and the problem was that this thing, for one, it's small. Now, small is great on the curves. The shorter the wheelbase of a motorcycle, the faster you can blast that thing around the curves. The further you can lead it at the slower speeds, and just really wreck those curves. I do not have a short wheelbase. I'm a very long guy, right? And so I looked like an idiot on this thing, but I didn't really care because I was riding it for the fun. Two, I didn't realize how much I was getting cramped up on this bike and having difficulty really controlling it to the maximum possible extent that it can get controlled. Three, it was not fast enough. It didn't have enough power at the lower speeds for what I wanted. So what I was constantly doing was dumping money into modifying it to make it be what I needed it to be because I had already purchased it and this is what I have, so we have to figure out how to make this work. What does that sound like?
A Harley.
It sounds like a sim. It sounds like someone who bought a sim that was not properly sized or feature rich for what they're trying to do with it, right? And I was one of the things I was doing is I modified the size of the gearing, the sprockets on this thing, the gearing, so that I was like, okay, I'll get more power on that low end and it'll take off faster and it'll be fun riding around the city. The problem is that meant that when I was cruising at highway speeds, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, my RPMs are way too high. So I'm only going like 70 and the bike is like, whee! And how long does it take to get out to Dubuque?
4 hours.
About 4 hours of and then that also means you're burning way more fuel. So now I'm the annoying guy in the group who's like, hey guys, I need a fuel stop. I know it's been 45 minutes, I need a fuel stop. I'm out of fuel, I need a fuel stop. And it was just, and so then I would start playing with things to try to increase the miles per gallon, and there's a little bit you could do here and there, but like, overall, if you do not have the thing that is right for what you need to do with the thing, all of that money you dump into it it's gonna get you closer, but it's never gonna be the thing you need. And I kept dragging this out. I kept doing mod after mod and tweak after tweak after tweak on this thing, dumping money, dumping time into this thing just to try to get it to be what I actually needed. Because I didn't budget my needs properly. And subsequently, I didn't budget my money properly because you go, well, you know what, if that's all you can afford, you gotta buy what you can afford. That's a flexible scenario. You can put more money in this bucket. It might make you more time. You might have to take money out of another bucket. But man, let me tell you, it is worth taking money out of that other bucket to put it in something that that is going to be a core component of what you do on a daily basis. And I wish that I had done that. What I moved on to was this guy, which is, I'm going to tell you what all this means. 188 horsepower at 423 pounds. That is about a quarter of a BMW M3, the size of me. Okay, so like horsepower doesn't really matter unless you consider horsepower versus with weight. How much weight are you dragging around with this horsepower? For comparison, this is something a little easier. This motorcycle has the 0 to 60 miles per hour rate of a Tesla Model S in plaid mode. If you've ever been in a Model S in plaid mode, that thing will put you in the back seat real fast. That's what this can do. It doesn't have to. This is what this can do. I have still tweaked this a bunch, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, to be what exactly I need, because you will never get anything that's off the shelf that is just perfect for you, that is just no notes. I love every single day of my life on this. I don't wish it did anything else. But it was so much less than I was doing on the other bike. This, out of the gate, out of the box, was enough bike. As soon as I sat on this bike and I took it up and down the street one time, it was like I felt this weight melt off of my shoulders. And I said, oh, this is what I needed. This is what I should have had. Just the feeling of it, the way it reacts, how it runs slow, how it runs when it's fast. At 70 miles an hour, it's at like 4,500 RPMs instead of 7,000, which the other bike was at. So we're talking about, okay, when we go to Dubuque, there's two aspects to going to Dubuque. Well, the first one is going in a straight line for an extremely long time. Anyone else here ride? Yeah, you guys know how horrible going in a straight line is? That's so like guys who go ride to, the guys who ask me, how do you ride that thing without your back being a nightmare? It's because, I tried to not do straight lines. Sitting locked up in that position for 4 hours is what wrecks your body in a motorcycle. It's the same as if you had to sit in a chair for 4 hours locked in one position. You'd die. And so riding in a straight line for 4 hours, you don't want that. This thing is sort of quieter. Robert will tell you I've made some changes that he doesn't enjoy riding.
He has to ride in the back.
Yeah, I have to stay in the back because way less RPMs, way higher miles per gallon, which is way more comfortable in those straight lines. Also, longer bike. I can easily sit upright on this bike, reach the controls, and be in a comfortable position. And I can also move around on this bike to get to just move in those straight lines. So great having this level of power for going moderate speeds because the lower RPMs are nice. It's not what you thought it was for. It's not for going extremely fast. This bike can go like 212 miles an hour. Do you think there's no road long and straight enough to go 212 miles an hour with like zero potholes or cops. Honestly, if you blast past a cop at 212, they just let you go. I actually wanted it for the cruising. But then also, it's still a sport bike. Still has the rounded tires. It still has you can lean this thing way over. It still has the steering dampers without getting into what all it means. It means I can still throw this thing around a turn and have a blast. You can't throw this thing around a turn like I could the old 600. So I had to give a little bit of something up to get something that was much closer to what I actually needed. But it was absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. Life was so much easier, faster, better, comfortable. I got so much more done in the way of, what are you getting done on a motorcycle? You're getting what we call road therapy, which is the enjoyment of just being out there instead of constantly thinking about, oh man, this thing is so loud. Oh, these RPMs are so high. Oh, I'm gonna run out of fuel soon. Oh, I'm embarrassed to tell these guys I'm running out of fuel soon. Just those sorts of, just constantly struggling with the stress of using this thing was not worth the small amount of cost savings versus getting what I had actually needed and versus really sitting down and figuring out what that was. What I did aside from getting the right bike was training. Can you just find a motorcycle and figure out how to ride it and even do that enough to pass your test and get a motorcycle license? 100%. I would guess most people do that. I'm not sure, but I think most people do not take a class. Because I've met so many people like, I don't know, I just rode dirt bikes when I was a kid and then I just got a license. I'm like, oh, cool,
Dirt
man.
bikes is good training.
Yeah, dirt bikes is great training. 'Cause, well, I mean, there's no better training than throwing your face at the dirt 1,000 times. Like, for sure.
What the state of Illinois used to say was 35%.
35%, wow.
Yeah. I was an instructor for 7 years.
Oh, cool.
Hey, thank you.
We appreciate that, for sure.
Next month, free motorcycle training.
No, I retired that.
This is free.
Tired of eating dirt. So one of the best parts of that training was that it teaches you how to know how to handle odd situations that you don't come across that often, versus having to figure out what to do about an odd situation in real time when something really bad is currently happening. You don't want to be Googling during an incident, right? I don't want to be Googling when there's something in the road I must run over because I can't get around it. Is there a safe way to do that? Yes, there is a safe way to do that. That's one of the things we were learning in class. One of the things they would literally do in class is you're riding along and they throw a 2x4 in the road and you have to run over it. There is a safe and proper way to do this. And then they get you confident with doing that. Handling odd situations under stress is one of the best things that training can provide. It allows you to understand the full capabilities of that motorcycle that you have versus just playing with it yourself and figuring it out and thinking you understand it. You know, if you can get training from the manufacturer, from the vendor, etc., on every last aspect of this thing that you bought, that's so much better, and you're going to get that so much faster than if you spent time just using and learning this thing on your own. Saves tons of time under pressure, substantially reduces risk because you know all the capabilities of this thing, you know what it can do, you know where to touch, pull, push, look to make it do the thing you need it to do, you know what it's going to do when you ask it to do certain things, and so you can be much more confident that you have, let's say, we're going back to incident response. You can be much more confident that you have looked everywhere and seen everything and correlated everything in the best way possible, thus reducing that risk of overlooking something in some way without getting too deep into that correlation. And I think between the saves tons of time and really the fact that, the big takeaway from this top part is the time investment of sending someone to training. This is what the pushback I hear in training all the time is like, look, I can't afford to be down a whole FTE for 40 hours. That's insane, I can't do that. Or I can't, let alone the whole team or whatever. That FTE who is untrained and trying to use this thing, especially if this thing is brand new, is costing you so much in downtime that nobody sees by how much time, by how slow they are at using this thing that they don't thoroughly understand. Give up the 40 hours and let them get trained on that thing, because everybody talks about what the 10x engineer, hire that 10x engineer, that engineer who's able to operate the same as 10 engineers. That's the person who's probably gone to a bunch of training first and foremost. Lose that 40, that person is wasting 40 hours of your time looking at their phone. So let them use it getting some training in something they might be interested in. And then, I'd say first and foremost, especially if we're talking about vendor training, it's either extremely cheap because the vendor wants you to succeed, or it's free a lot of times. Robert, how much did Splunk's trainings cost?
They weren't too much. They also had a program that were free for veterans. And I used to take some of the workshops to HackerCons all the time and taught those for free as well.
Yeah. There's so much free vendor training out there. Forget SIEMs. Look at all of your products.
But even the top price was like a couple $100.
Yeah, and we're talking $200 for like a week of training to have somebody come back and just be the best person your company has ever had do this thing with this product. Who's turning that down? That's insanity. That's wanting to be bad. And if you want to be bad, please get yourself fired. That's stupid. That's the opposite. You want to talk conflict of interest. I think that's like the most core definition. So look into trainings from your vendors. Ask your field technicians. Go, hey, do you guys have any training on this? Because also I found those field agents, et cetera, they're not great at pushing it. Because nobody asks for it, nobody wants it. The last 20 times they pushed it, everyone was like, oh, I don't got time. I get sent to FTE for 40 hours. I got all this work to do. And so they just go, all right, I'm not even going to tell people we got it because nobody wants it. Be that person who wants it. Get that training.
It's also not incentivized.
What do you mean it's not incentivized?
Sales isn't incentivized to
Oh,
offer
sure.
training.
Yeah, sure. If you're talking to your salesperson, they're probably not going to mention the training, is it? Yeah, they don't get any commission from it. They want to push. They will spend their time pushing to something else. That's what.
That's totally wrong.
That's completely wrong.
Yeah.
I agree, completely wrong.
It's fightable.
But everybody did go through a lot of training so that they don't call, hopefully, support as much.
So I would hope that the salespeople, would want to push the training so that the customer thinks they got something great
Absolutely.
because they can take full advantage of this thing. We got 2-3 good salespeople in here. That's good. Great to see. Yeah.
For sure.
In my experience, it's been talk to the field engineers, support engineers, because those are the ones who are sick of talking to people who don't know how to use the product and want the training. But your mileage may vary. It doesn't matter who you talk to because you're going to be the person asking where's the training. So talk to whoever because they're going to tell you where it is. And they put these pictures here because this is the training. Some of the absolute best training I ever got in my life is racing on the track, taking track days. And you might go, oh, I don't need track days. I don't want to be, that's crazy. I don't want to be a race driver. I don't want to compete. I don't need this track stuff. I'm just gonna go tour it. If you can respond to an emergency situation at this speed, having an emergency situation at this speed is hilarious. It's a joke. It's nothing. You will never be safer than having done track training. This is one of the two things that changed me as a rider for the absolute better. It was taking some track days as training. And I don't mean just going to the track, I mean taking classes at the track. The other one was just last year, going to the Tail of the Dragon, Deals Gap down in Tennessee. How many turns per over how many miles?
118 turns in 11 miles.
118 curves over 11 miles, and we ran that thing 8 times over 2 days. It beats the crap out of you, but man, and these turns are switchbacks. You're going left and then immediately right. And left and then right, and there's you going right, and then I gotta go to the left. Switching back and forth, left and right, left, and there's inclines and declines. So you're shifting up, you're shifting down, you're feathering the brake, you're feathering the clutch. It makes you focus on so much of the bike, and then eventually, after doing that it's drills is what it is, over and over and over and over, you just become one with the bike. And when you hit the normal open roads, you're like, I'm the best rider alive. I'm the god of motorcycles. It was crazy coming out of there and being like, wow, I am like watching myself from outside of my body and be like, I handled that way better than I normally do. Even just like highway clover leaves, I'm like, look at this. This is nothing. Get that training, folks. So what I still did was some modifications to this bike to still get it to be exactly what I needed in my environment, in the context of me using it how I needed to use it personally. A windscreen, which is critical on a motorcycle, to get the wind to direct over and around you in a shape that conforms with your personal body. I have one that pushes the wind over my shoulders and over my helmet when I'm in the race position. But also, what's great about it is that when I get in the upright position, it hits me right in the chest and it pushes me up, which takes a lot of that weight off my abs and my butt, so I can kind of be a little lazy, and that's great for comfort long term. Having a comfortable machine that is easy to use and understand and doesn't make you hate it every time you get on it is super critical to being an effective operator of that machine. Airflow, we're talking intake and exhaust. The more air you can push through an engine, the more fuel you can inject into that air, and the more power you can get out of it per cycle. The other side of that is You can also you can increase or decrease your miles per gallon depending on how hard you want to ride it. So more airflow, without getting into the physics of it, can mean better miles per gallon, if that's a concern. And when you're talking touring, going long distances, especially long distances where there might not be a gas station here and there, that's the context that the bike was not made for. Now I've made it work for that. Gearing, I talked about the gearing a lot before. Changing the gears, you can move the torque from being a lot of low-end torque, which means when the RPMs are real low. You can get a lot of power and accelerate faster. Sport bikes generally are made for high-end torque, which means they don't really get a lot of acceleration until you're way up there. And that was not what I particularly needed. I wanted the sport bike because I liked the squirreliness of it. I loved wrecking the turns with that thing. I love the feel of that. I did not want the top end torque of that though. So I did a little gearing changes to kind of bring that back into where I wanted it. This can mess with your top speed. I don't care about the top speed of this motorcycle. It's 212 miles an hour. If you shave 40 off of that, I will never know that that happened. That's fine. I know I will never need that. And then that, of course, RPMs at various miles per hour affects how much miles per gallon you're getting. Again, clearly this is the thing I talk about a lot because touring, I'm doing something with it at my context, at my company, that most others aren't. And so I had to mod it for that. And then finally, tuning. We all know this word in the context of both of these things that we're talking about today. Tuning gets real complicated. Tuning was something that I had done even on this motorcycle myself. Because the other option is you pull the computer out of your motorcycle and you send it to somebody else who puts something on there that they think might be okay. Or you take the entire motorcycle to somebody who has what's called a dynamometer. You've seen these on cars. It's where they pull the car up under the thing and the wheels turn the other wheels and it tells you how fast the car's going. I don't know. But they put a lot of, they're reprogramming the car's computer to control how much fuel and how much air is let into the engine when and at what times. And they can create nice custom maps that are exactly tuned for what you want the machine to do. And I was like, oh man, that is so expensive. Forget this, I'm gonna do it myself. And so what you can do to do it yourself, because you generally can't reprogram your vehicle's computer on your own. I'm gonna just go full stop on that. Because it's a wider conversation if I don't. What you can do is you get something like this is the most common thing. It's called a power commander. What this thing does is you have all these doohickeys and you plug all those doohickeys into your fuel injectors. And then it's got a bunch of other doohickeys and you plug those into the things that were supposed to connect into the fuel injectors. And so what that means is you have this box that is in between the vehicle's computer and the fuel injectors. And this thing lies to the vehicle's computer about how much fuel and how much airflow and stuff is going into the engine, so that the bike's computer will then send the right commands into the injectors to send more fuel or less fuel or whatever than it was normally meant to. This is a hack. It sort of works. It was finicky. For one, even just the hardware is expensive. We're talking $600 just to buy this. And for reference, to buy a new ECU for a new computer for the vehicle, it's like $400. And so then you get this, and then it's got a blank what's called a map on it. It has no instructions. So then you have to hook up your laptop and tell it what you want it to do. And so it's like a spreadsheet of miles per hour, or no, a spreadsheet of RPMs versus what gear you're in, and then you tell it how much fuel to inject into each injector individually. And how do you figure out what to do? Well, you guess it first, and then you take it for a ride, and you put it through every gear at every RPM, and they literally tell you, as you're doing this, make sure you write down notes as to, Sarah, on the motorcycle, with what, a little notepad, and like, oh, here's fourth gear at 3,000 RPMs, and it needs a little more oomph there, and then there's a little dip. I spent years tweaking this thing. Because also when you have the ability to tweak this thing, it's never gonna be right for you. You're gonna be like, oh, maybe I got a little juice out of here. I think there's a little dip here. Years of time I sunk into this. And the best you get is like, well, it kind of works. It's better than what we had. Honestly, I'm not sure it was ever better than what we had. And then one day, I was looking for something to make my new exhaust I had put on for higher airflow a little quieter, because that was the trade-off, is the higher airflow exhaust is loud as shit. And I went back to the manufacturer's website, who was a dude in a garage who made exhausts, which is really cool because he makes really great exhausts, and he was offering an ECU programming service. And I was like, real, what, I gotta send you, what do you come, how do you do this? And he was like, you just send me my computer, and here's what I do. You tell me what your intake and exhaust system looks like, and he knows what the exhaust system looks like already because I bought it from him. So he goes, if you bought one of my exhausts, you tell me what your intake system looks like, which is basically, for mostly motorcycles, it's like, what kind of air filter do you have? And then, model year, and then I'm gonna send you back, I'm gonna reprogram your computer. You just send me your computer module, it's about this big. And you'll get it back within 3 days. So I sent it literally over a rainy weekend. And he didn't just put the most beautiful map on there. So he tells you, like, here's everything you're gonna get on it. And it basically, he goes, here's all the complaints everyone has ever had about this bike, and I just fixed them. And one of them is like, it's way too jumpy taking off what we call off the line. From a dead stop to going 1 mile an hour, it yanks you. So that really sucks in the city. You stop sign after stop sign after stop sign. You don't want to like just constantly getting jerked off the line like that. That is the nature of sport bikes. And he goes, we'll just reprogram it to not do that. It also has something called anti-dive protection, which is on these bikes, if you brake really hard, you'll dive forward on those shocks. I have electronic shocks that prevent that, and mine were a little too forgiving, and he tightens those up so you don't dive so hard. He made it so the engine fan turns on at a way cooler temperature, so that by the time it turns on, you're not getting blasted with 230-degree air on a 90-degree day. Things like that, things I had not even thought of, because I had brought in this professional to just do this for me, who knew all about this stuff, who lived and breathed this stuff every day and researched this bike up and down and said, I'm the guy, and this is all I do. And so I'll do this for you real cheap because it's a repeatable process for me. All I do is go from person to person, and I just do the same thing because I know it's what they need. And also, you can tell him, hey, I'd like you to ease up on this or do a little more on that, and he'll go, yeah, fine, sure. You know what he cost me? $300. Yeah, and 3 days. Versus the years I spent screwing with this thing. And I was on the verge of selling this bike. I was on the verge of, Robert may remember, I was like, I think I'm gonna buy a cruiser. Because these sport bikes are just not providing the more ubiquitous comfort that I just really am looking for. And I think I might buy a more sporty cruiser. And then I found this guy and I was like, oh, $300, I'll try it. I've never once considered selling the bike after that. It is everything I've ever wanted because I paid someone to come in and do this. And I have this bullet point down here. Who's, this is, we've got MBA words down here. CapEx versus OpEx. What am I talking about with this whole slide? I'm talking about bringing someone in. What does that mean? I'm talking about bringing in a contractor. I have seen so much success at so many companies where instead of like telling your people, and your people tell you they never have time to tune the SIEM, right? Nobody has time to tune the SIEM. Bring somebody in, and I mean bring somebody in for 6 months. And the amount of money they're going to save you in time that your people are going to sink into using this thing, and then not to even bring up how much more effective everyone is going to be because they have something that works in exactly the way that they need it to. Especially since, like, when you bring in a contractor, that person's going to give you exactly what you want because that's their one job, and you're going to get down their throat about it because that's how having a contractor works. You're going to look, I paid you for one thing. And you said you'd do it, so do it, and that's that. And I've seen this work so well, and a lot of people forget about this. They forget that it's not a matter of like I don't have time to have one of my people spend 6 months, Googling how to even do half of this stuff that they'll maybe never have to do again. But you can bring somebody in for contractors are expensive, but the amount of money you immediately save. This is like SIEMs are one of the greatest places to see that immediate return on that investment for having that thing tuned. Like, what's the number one problem about all SIEMs out there? They're not tuned, right? The number one problem of all security products in existence. They're not tuned. And why not? Because you don't have the time to do it. Bring someone in, find the money, bring somebody in, and I really mean like 6 months where every day all they're doing is this. and you're gonna have just this golden, perfect machine that will just be a joy to interact with. Pending it's able to do in the first place, like we talked about, what you needed to do. So overall, let's cap it off with some lessons learned, and this really leans hard into like, look, yes, we're talking about SIMs, come on. Consult experienced peers, and I'm talking about other people at the same size of companies as you who are maybe running a system that you're looking at purchasing, or just have gone through this process of A, implementing a brand new SIM in an environment that never had one, or B, migrating a SIM to something else. Talk to them and see what their experience is with. Get their lessons learned. Don't just Google it yourself. Don't just look at the Gartner squares. Talk to other people. I mean, this is, half the people in this room could talk to you about that. Make sure you're doing that at these events, not just setting yourself up to jump to a new company. You know, you should be talking about these weird technical and management issues that you have. That includes other teams. Make sure you're talking to the other teams in your environment about what doing this is gonna look like from an implementation and a new process standpoint. So many of the hiccups I see here are, oh yeah, here's how much stuff we are bringing into the SIM, and now we're gonna bring in this new one that can actually parse a lot more stuff. So that's gonna be cool, and it's really effective, and it's gonna cost us less too. So let's do that. And then they buy it, and then you tell, to just put it basically, the server team, all right, send all those logs over to us. And the server team goes, that's gonna be about a $500,000 project because X, Y, Z. Or also the way that this new thing ingests the logs, it's gonna require us to install some agents on all these servers. And you're gonna have to wait for the change window on this huge group of servers, and that only happens once every September. Like make sure before you buy stuff that you tabletop the installation and the implementation process. Get everyone together. Tabletops don't just have to be for incidents. Do it for implementation. Get everyone together, goes, here's what this is gonna do, here's how they say to do this, and get your field technician from the vendor on the line to do this. And that's when you're gonna find out exactly what this is really gonna cost you, and time, and of course, money, versus getting all those surprises later, because we've all done this. You bought something new, it seems so easy, you get it in, and then you start opening up the cellar doors and finding the skeletons and going, oh no. This is an old engineering rule. Add 20%. Some will say 25, some will, that number varies. But however much time you think something's gonna take, what do? You add 20%, right? Because you never know. However much you think you're gonna need to buy for your environment, add 20%. This is a minimum. This is usually what I can get away with saying to people without them freaking out and setting themselves on fire. Add to whatever you think. Even if you did this table toppings, add 20%. Even in the worst case scenario, you're gonna end up with room to grow in the future, and room to grow more for longer in the future. Train, I don't gotta lean into that anymore. Make sure your definition of a done, this is something I scream at work all the time. Make sure your definition of done includes the training, includes documentation, so that, and I mean like internal documentation. So say when you hire new people, they'll be able to get onboarded to the use of whatever this thing is very quickly. Make sure that's in the definition of done. Why do you do that? Because then that makes it everyone's problem, and that makes it so like, hey, we can't close this project out until all of the items in it are done. That's a way that you kind of like hold the business hostage to making sure that I can make sure my people get trained. Well, that was part of the project, and so we still have to, this is an open line item in this project, and so we're gonna make sure we get that done before we can close this project out. Well, use project management to hold your company hostage. It's a tool, and it goes in many directions. Make sure that definition of done, and you know what? Take your definition of done, it's included all of these things, add 20%. Because then what you can do is when people start putting the screws to you about like, this is gonna take too long, we gotta cut something out, then you just cut out that 20% you didn't want anyway. They think that they put the screws to you and that they made a compromise, and really what you're getting is only what you wanted anyway. Success! And then you get to get excited, and you have to stern face and go, all right. And then you get to go home and dance. because you did it. Make sure you budget for all of that. Which really, I kind of really alluded to that throughout this. Budgeting also means time. Make sure that you understand how much time anything's going to take. Table topping is really what's going to help you figure that time out. Take anything anyone else tells you for time and money and add 20%. Service team says, oh, that's going to take us 12 weeks. We could do it in November. Assume that it's going to take them about 16 weeks and it'll get done around January. Well, that's way more than 16 weeks. Assume it'll get done next June. Add 20% to anything anyone else tells you, because again, worst case scenario, it's done early, and everybody gets real excited when you're under budget, and part of budget is time. So, thank you everybody. I don't know where we ended up on time, but nobody's yelling at me. QR code to find all my stuff, including this deck, etc. So, thanks, and I'll hand it back to Rob.
Yeah, woo, thank you, woo. Let's give it up for Johnny and Leslie.